I wanted to finish up this presentation with a neat video from CNN. It's about the video game developer Harmonix and how they launched the Beatles rock band, uniting one of the most popular video game franchises with one of history's biggest rock bands. The collaboration is now owned by MTV. But not so long ago, Harmonix's founders, Alex Rogopoulos and Aaron Agosi, two computer hobbyists who also love music, decided to try their hand at starting a new company. In this video, they talk about their bumpy road to success and how they almost failed twice.
2, 3, 4. It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog. It's been a hard day's night, I should be sleeping like a log.
My boss is a guy named Van Toffler, who is the president of the music group at MTV. And it turns out that he's an old family friend of the Harrisons, of George's widow, Olivia Harrison, and son, Danny Harrison. And back over holiday, Christmas, New Year's holiday at the end of 2006, he was on some Caribbean island that they were also on, and they had dinner together. So we met shortly thereafter, and not really to talk business, just to get acquainted as friends, but early on in those conversations, the idea emerged naturally. Wouldn't it be incredible to do a game based upon that music of the Beatles? And when the idea first came up, I think both he and I assumed it would be impossible because that music is so closely guarded. But we had to try.
Over me.
We actually first met when we were undergrads at MIT. But we didn't really get to know each other too well at that point. It was really later at the MIT Media Lab where we were office mates in the same research group working on computer music systems that we really got to know each other.
It was at that point that we started working together and actually discovered that we had a common interest in this particular area of research, which was figuring out how to use computer technology to basically invent new ways for people who are not musicians to feel what it feels like to play music. The interactive music work that we were doing in the early years, there were some interesting experiments and we learned a lot of lessons, but from a business standpoint, we weren't getting any footing at all. You know, we weren't making any money. In fact, we barely had any revenue, let alone any earnings. And so we really struggled to stay afloat during those early years. But it was around 1999 when music games first started to appear in Japan that we realized that fusing music making with video games was probably the way that we could actually bring what we were trying to do to a mass audience.
The first game we released was in 2001 for the PlayStation 2, and it was called Frequency.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of critical acclaim, it did incredibly well and won lots of awards and got lots of reviews, and it sold miserably. Just like its sequel, Amplitude did.
Right. Amplitude probably did a little better.
Amplitude did a little better, yeah. And it was actually one of the first hard lessons that we learned as a game development studio. I think we had this early naive faith that if we made a game that was really fun and addictive to play, and was brought to market by a big, powerful publisher, our publisher for these games was Sony, they're a great publisher, that it would be successful. And actually what we learned the hard way with Frequency and Amplitude was that it's not enough to make a game that's really fun to play. You also have to make a game that's easy to market. In 2005, we had the opportunity finally to make Guitar Hero, which was the first game where we were actually able to apply the lessons of both of those earlier games. We combined this insanely addictive gameplay from our early rhythm games with a visual presentation that was really made a lot of sense and was really easy for players to get their head around, mainstream accessible soundtrack, and then the controller, which I think really nails the suspension of disbelief. And all the ingredients finally came together in Guitar Hero, and that's when things exploded.
It was great having the Guitar Hero opportunity, but you know, the thought of getting the whole band together, you know, Alex, let's get the band together.
Yeah. After Guitar Hero had become quite a big success, that was the point at which actually, and it was after around Guitar Hero 2, we were being acquired by MTV at that point. And at that point, MTV basically said, look, we'll give you the resources you need, just go make your dream game, the game you've always wanted to make. And so for the first time, we had the opportunity to just swing for the fences and make Rock Band.
I think the biggest challenge in Harmonix was staying alive long enough to be able to eventually get to the day where we could make the big hit. But you see, we didn't know when that was going to happen. So, of course, in retrospect, you see Guitar Hero and you say, oh, of course, well, that's the product. When we made Guitar Hero, we had no idea that this was going to be, the thing that changes everything.
Thank you for joining me for this presentation on the entrepreneurial life. I look forward to reading your work for Chapter 1.